issue is, do you even want to start a company, right? Because it's like a long journey and all these things. So
thank you, Javier, for your time today. Really, really appreciate it to come to this Life After Corporate series. Would you please tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So I went to school to study mathematics back in the day and software engineering. And then I work at Microsoft Research, our studio on SAP, and then now I'm doing my own startup. That's kind of like the quick recap.
Yeah. Hey, so like I'm checking out your LinkedIn profile and your company is called Hal9 and you're the founder of it. Would you please tell me a little bit about what your company does and also your role at the company?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the answer is twofold. I consider myself a very idealistic person, right? So we started the company really with the mission of making artificial intelligence more accessible. We think that there's a lot of companies out there, that are into artificial intelligence, but there's no one single company that is truly trying to help, closer everyday people and make it more accessible. Now, in practice, what does that mean? That's super idealistic, right? So in practice, what we found out right now, like short-term tactical mission for the company is we're helping data scientists build better, faster web applications. So data scientists, that work on artificial intelligence still need to build web applications, but especially those in small companies, in a startup or whatever, they don't have the resources that Tesla would have, or Netflix. So, they come with us and we give them a turnkey ready data science platform that they can use to productize their machine learning applications. So that's kind of like on the short term. And that's where, the grind is today and probably next year. But, we also have aspirations of like, why are we doing this? Is like, because if we bring more people into AI, we're empowering more people. We're really putting artificial intelligence in control of people. And that to us is very important.
And what is your role at the company? I know it's this founder.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm the founder and CEO. I'm still trying to digest I'm the CEO role because I hate titles. So I need to keep saying it. But yeah, I'm the founder. I'm pretty much, I think that the thing with startups, whenever you say like, I'm the CEO, everyone thinks like, oh, this guy just does very important high level stuff, right? And in reality, it's like, I do basically like all the tasks that no one wants to do, from like taxes and accounting and hiring and other fun things like, actually building the product, right? But it is a bit of a misnomer, I think. I don't know, personally, if I could, I would get rid of all titles, but I like better the founder title, but I'm also, strictly speaking, the CEO of the company.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I mean, you obviously, like you went to, you studied mathematics and you also worked as a software engineer and you worked as, in the big tech companies and everything. But what really motivated you to start your own company or like start Hal9?
Yeah, so it was two things. So first of all, like I've always wanted to create my own company. And, I've heard, you probably also heard this saying that says, you don't find the idea finds you. It's just really hard to force yourself into doing a startup just for the sake of doing it. But I've been trying to do a startup, literally, for the past 20 years, right? It's like, I should do something, right? But it's like, I've done side projects and it's like, yeah, that's kind of cool. And it doesn't feel like, I should quit my job to do this, right? It's like, so I've been trying to do it for a really long time. It's just like, it didn't feel right. And it was not until, year 2020, end of the pandemic, that a bunch of things aligned together. And, it made me switch the decision, right? And we can talk more about what those things were, but it was not until then that I'm like, and also, life stage, perhaps, anything, everything kind of like felt right. Like, this is the right time. If you're going to have a shot, you should do it now. And we can, I can talk on the details of that, but, it kind of like felt like the right time.
Were you working like full time on a corporate job, and then like, is that when you started, or like did you like quit and then immediately started something new?
Yeah, so just to give you a sense, this also has been a discovery journey for me, as a professionally. When I started working in Microsoft, I work in one of the biggest teams, which is Office. It's just giant. I don't know how many people they have today, but probably 5,000, 10,000, 30,000, I don't know. And throughout my career, like, I didn't realize it at the beginning, but I was progressively moving to smaller and smaller teams. So I started in Office, then I moved to Office 365. Then I started a consumer new product with like 30, 40 people. And then I moved to Microsoft Research, right? So I definitely, it took me a while to realize that I I enjoy a lot working on very small teams at the very beginning. So that was more like, like life discovery, path for me. Then at some point I was like, I should find a different, company. Like I've been working on Amazon, Microsoft Research for a while, and then a friend of mine invited me to work at our studio, which is at the time it was a 20 people company. So it was pretty much a startup, right? So that was the first big transition for me. So I moved to work at a startup first, and my plan was to work there for 1 year. I was like, okay, I need to get a sense of what the startup world. But then I ended up staying there for 5 years. By the time that yeah, I know, right? By the time that I left, I had, like the company already had like 250, more than, around 250 people. So like it very much felt like, well, I shouldn't say that, but it definitely, it didn't felt like a corporate job, but it was getting there, right? Where it's like,
Gotcha.
we'll have processes, we had this structure. So yes, to answer your question, I was working potentially, what you could call a corporate, a tech job, at the time where I decided to quit my job. Yeah.
Interesting. So you mentioned something about the idea comes to you versus you find the idea. Like, can you maybe share a little bit about like what inspired you to think about, the idea you had with HAL9, and then like how you actually started to maybe conceptualize it?
Yeah, for sure. And it's a really great question. And, it's never as black and white as people make it sound. It's like, oh, the idea comes to you. And it's like, one day you're in the shower and you're like, the idea arrives and you're like, I need to build this, right? It wasn't like that. But like, so to me, were two things. So first of all, I've been, I found out that, from a mission point of view, what I mentioned is that, it felt to me that there was a company missing to really try to democratize artificial intelligence. So to me, from a principle point of view, was like, yeah, like there should be someone trying to really make that happen, right? Because, to me, if there's no company that does that, like we risk end up in a society where AI is controlled by, like the top 20 tech companies, right? And everyone else is like, working from them. So that was one part of it. And that, I felt strongly from a personal level. I mean, that doesn't mean that you have a product, right? It's just like a direction. And the other part was that I was actually doing research on while I was on my current job, and I found this interesting trend of technology, right? That it wasn't at all aligned with what I was doing at my current job. It was like a separate thing, different programming language, different set of tools that I was like, yeah, like that's going somewhere, right? And I can get into the details of that depending on your audience, how technical they are. But basically, I kind of like found a technology that had the purpose and the potential of aligning with the vision that I had of like making AI more accessible. So it's interesting because, like, as I mentioned, it's not that's not a product at all, right? It's like hey, you have a very strong feeling about technology and something that you really want to do. And then I quit my job with that in mind, just with a very fuzzy direction. And honestly, like the first 6 months was spent, okay, what do we build, right? It's like, I felt strongly that there was something there. And my point of view was, well, I don't know what we need to build there, but like, no one is building a technology on this space. There's no company with this purpose, and there's no company investing in this technology. So, like there must be something, right? And it wasn't clear what it was. Like I started building, the product came around faster, but then I didn't have a market. So I totally, my background is technical, and I totally did what people recommend not to do, which is don't build the product first, find the market first. And I was like, no, I'm an engineer. I'm gonna build the product first, and then I spend the other 6 months figuring out like who's gonna use this. So
yeah,
but yeah, but I honestly, I do feel like if there's, I do feel like that's an incorrect misunderstanding. Like people a lot of time think, oh, you need to start with the business side, to build a company. But then you see people like Elon Musk that is like, well, I'm gonna build electric cars, right? And people like Google, I'm just gonna make search better, right? And so I do feel like, there's merit in starting, the product first. It's just gonna be it needs to be technically harder, right? It's just, I feel like the bar is different. If you're gonna go for product first, like it better be something that is improving things, because you're not doing the business ground up, right? That other businesses do, right? And it's gonna be, anyway. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but
no,
I don't think that is possible. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I especially love the way you put like you had a direction or like a vision, and then you knew the technical side as well, and then like you try to match those two. I guess the naturalness question was like, so a lot of the folks that I talk with, like who start their own company and stuff, like usually what they do is like they start with a small project on the side or something, and then they quit their job. And it seems like you did it in an opposite way, where you quit your job and then you kind of figure it out like in the next 6 months or so. Like how did that feel? Like were you kind of anxious or like like kind of worried about it or anything when you first did that?
Um, well, I would say that even though I didn't have a product when I left, like I got, my side product or my side project was I started researching that technology, right? Like there was like a, in a sense, it was product building, but not really, right? It's like, hey, that looks really interesting. Like, so I spent time, researching that technology, right? Without building really anything. If you know what I mean, it's like, that
Yeah.
looks, so in some ways I did some of the pre-learning. I mean, of, like getting to that space.
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, the thing, so I did one thing, one preparation that I did do is when I quit my job, I said, I gave myself 1 year. So like,
Mm.
I set savings, to be okay with me and my family. We have 3 kids, right? So like we were like, okay,
Okay.
we need to at least be fine for a year. So that definitely made me feel much more confident that like I was gonna have
Okay.
to find something. Now to be fair, it was also like a deterrent, right? Because once oh, I'm gonna be okay for 1 year, I definitely feel like I pushed some of the hard decisions, like doing sales, to the end of the year, right? When you're like, okay, they're only now we need to get money. So I don't know. So in general, it didn't feel scary because
Okay.
and I think this is something worth sharing with people. Like, if my plan was I'm gonna work on this 1 year. So what can happen after the end of the year? Either this fails and I get a job, back in tech. And the question was like, can you get a job back in tech? And the answer was like, yes. If you've been in tech and you have good relationships and
Yeah,
you've proven, I was gonna get a job, right? So
for
so
sure.
it never really felt scary. At the end of the year, it felt very, very scary, not because of, hey, like, I'm running out of money or whatever, right? But it was more like, hey, I need to get a job and I don't want to get a job, right? So better better make this
Make
work,
sure
right?
you succeed with what you do
Yeah, it
versus
was.
go back to corporate. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. So
yeah. Did you have like a business partner when you first started?
it was really weird. So no, strictly speaking, no. So I reached out to my brother and a really good
Okay.
friend to start the company together, and we were like, we're gonna do this together, right? And we were like, yes, we're gonna do it. We're gonna quit our jobs, and then we applied to Y Combinator, and by that point we were like, yep, we just get accepted, and we all quit our jobs, and then we do it, right? And it's like, right. And then what happened is that we got the interview process on Y Combinator. We talked with all the guys there, and it was great. And then we got rejected. So it's like,
Okay.
then it was like, okay, now what does that happen? It's like we don't have funding. Like what do we do, right? So basically, on practice, what happened is that I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep going on this full time. You guys stay as an advisors, right? And so basically, I don't have like a proper, co-founder, if
Okay.
you want to call about it, where it's like
Yeah.
equal. But I've had from the very beginning, quote. I mean, I learned that I cannot call them co-founders because usually a co-founder needs to be working 100% on the time of the company
Yes.
and have 10% equity. But from my point of view, they're like advisors slash co-founders because they've been
Okay.
there from the beginning and they've been helping in many ways. But yeah,
Yeah.
like not strictly speaking, it's not until now that actually one of them is joining full time on July. But it
Oh,
took like
interesting.
it took an entire year of like just kind of like getting the company to a point where it's self-sufficient to some degree, and we're that. But yeah, I mean, it's not like a black and white yes and no, right? It's like, did I have
Gotcha.
co-founders? Yes, in my mind, but not really. And then it's
Okay.
not until now. So like, I don't know. It's in between, I guess. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, that makes total sense. What do you like the most and what do you like the least about being an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So actually, I thought that being an my background, as I mentioned, is very technical. So I thought that the most rewarding thing that I was gonna get as being as an entrepreneur is basically building whatever I wanted. It's like no one is gonna tell me what to build. I'm gonna build what I want, right? And actually, I found out that one of the most rewarding things that I found out is doing team building and, having like a little group of people that were working together. And especially we had in the middle of all of this, we had the pandemic, right? So like it was like a pretty challenging time, I think, for everyone. And I love coding, right? I wasn't expecting that I was gonna actually like the human personal aspect of like building a company. It's like it's hard to do, and I feel like building a company creates like very, very strong bonds between people. Probably, I don't know if you watch Silicon Valley, right? I don't want to put spoilers here, but
I did.
A big part of it is just the process of going with really like a second family that you're building, right? And that process has been very rewarding, but I had no idea. I picture myself, I'm just gonna code by myself, and then money is gonna come. And yeah, and I think the less rewarding part, honestly, it's hard to find something that I hate. Like I'm very, very happy doing what I'm doing. I think maybe the least rewarding part, I don't know. I mean, so I think it's a good sign that I don't have like one that is like, oh my God, I hate it. I mean, I can tell you some of them, but they're very minor, like doing taxes, like doing paperwork, like incorporating a company, it's just awful. But like, in reality, it took like, it takes one day or half a day a year. So like, it's not like, oh, this is terrible. I don't know. Maybe I would say that, there's definitely a good amount of stress, but it's not bad stress. Like I've been in corporate jobs sometimes where you're like, oh my God, this needs to get done. And you feel like, I hate my job, like, it's just like the wrong type of stress. I do feel stress, but it's like a very, very positive way of stress where it's like, hey, customers are coming along and, like you're doing this together and you promise that and you feel like you need to keep going, but it's also like, shoot, I promised that, right? And you're very excited to deliver what you promised, but that still has a lot of like excitement / stress. My wife, actually, she's a psychologist, and I might be misinterpreting what she explained me. So, I apologize for that. But basically, her point of, from what I understand from her, is that there's a fine difference between a stress and excitement. Stress tends to be like negative, excitement, and excitement is just positive, right? Like, so you can see, if you see stress as positive, it becomes excitement. But in some ways also, like that excitement / stress can be also taxing. It's like you've been just doing it and doing it, and I've been doing it now for a year and a half, and I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like, man, this is like a marathon where I thought I was a hard worker, but for instance, this week it hasn't been this bad, but like this week I've been getting like 4 hours of sleep the last couple of days, and just like working 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning, which it's weird because it hasn't happened before. Like I had like an entire year and a few months of like very balanced work-life balance. But like it's just like getting to the point where things are getting crazy, and it's like, shoot, like we need to get things done, right? Because they're asking for it. So it's all positive, but like, and I want to do it. I could also tell customers, sorry, like this is gonna be, like it's got delayed, but like you feel so much excitement and so much drive that you're like, yeah, I can put the extra time, right? So like, it's all goodness, I guess. But
yeah. Hey, lucky that your wife is a psychologist. She's helping you out.
Yeah, she's my personal coach. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
What is one thing you wish you knew before you started your own company?
You know what? I definitely think that I could, so I'm a technical founder, and someone, I really hate the advice of, hey, you should start with the business. You should do business because that's the most important thing. And in some ways it's true, but I think it takes some finesse to explain it to a technical founder. It's not that business is important or is the most important thing on the business, right? Because there's good reason why there's a technical founder and a business founder usually. To me, it's more about switching roles. So the advice that I would give to people is like, if you're a business founder, right, and you have the connections and the market product fit and all that, I would be like, you should be doing the technical part, right? Because you already did that part, right? So it's not that it's not that creating a company, the most important part is business from my point of view. Like I think technology, especially for a technology company, technology and business are both important, but I would say a business person should probably be doing the technology first because they already figure out the other one. And as a technical founder, you should try to offload some of the business side, right? Like, hey, try to fundraise, try to do connections. And it's not that it's more important, because that's the thing that I always hated to hear. It's like, oh, you should do business first. It's like, wait, no, like technology is super important. And it's not that, right? It's like, you should be doing business, not because it's more important, but because you're a technical founder, and that's going to be the hardest part. So go and do it first, right? So I wish someone told me that.
Gotcha. No, that
yeah.
makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's already my last question, but advice for those who want to start their own company.
Yeah, that's a hard one, right? Because I think in general every person is different. I'll tell you some things that really helped me. Just to test driver, because I think the biggest issue is, do you even want to start a company, right? Because it's like a long journey and all these things. So in the past, I've done things like startup weekend, which is basically, you probably are familiar with that. Like a bunch of people get together, like you hack something over the weekend, and it's not the same, but like if you don't like startup weekend, you probably are also not going to like startup, right? Because it's a lot of ambiguity, a lot of all these things. Recently, I actually learned about a Seattle Angel Conference, which is basically, it's basically investing. And I think, it's another thing that I wish someone would have told me, that, I could have learned a lot about investing and, funding and, a company valuation just by doing those things. So I would definitely do that. And the other one is, I think it's important to have side projects, in my case, it was, sometimes when you're too focused on your job, it's just like so hard to start anything, because you're like, well, this is the job and everything, right? But creating that, some people say like you should get a hobby, right? I don't like hobbies. I just like technology stuff. But like, hey, like I want to learn something different, right? And something completely crazy, and creating that side project and whatnot. Like, I think it's just like a long journey. I don't think you can force things as I'm gonna do it, but like, talking to friends, getting, trying to build side projects, I think is just great. Exploring other things that you're not interested in, trying to invest in small companies, like, and learning how other entrepreneurs have gone through. I think those are all great things that worth considering.
Okay. Yeah, no, Javier, those were all the questions I had. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. This was super valuable.
No, for sure. And I also want to give you a thank you, John, because I feel like the community needs people like you that encourages people a little bit, out of their comfort zone. So thanks for doing this for future entrepreneurs, and like looking forward to staying in touch. And
yes,
yeah, for sure.
Of course. Thank you.